Hello. There are plenty of names that come up quite frequently when you examine the history of Games Workshop, Citadel, and Warhammer, but few as frequently as the Perry twins. Brothers Alan and Michael Perry joined Games Workshop when it was still based in London, and Citadel was only just beginning its rise to prominence. And over the course of a 30-year career, they would become some of the company's most prolific, creative, and beloved miniatures sculptors. Whether it was creating the Goblin Fanatics, giving the Empire its historical trappings, pushing metal casting to its absolute limits with the enormous Citadel Giant and Imperial Dragon, co-creating most of the Dogs of War range, or just making miniatures for countless Citadel ranges, they have made an immeasurable contribution to the hobby and to Warhammer. And all of that is before they sculpted the ranges for Lord of the Rings and went on to found their own historical miniatures company, Perry Miniatures. I'm Jordan, this is Jordan Sorcery, and today I have the great pleasure to be in conversation with famed Citadel sculptors, the Perrys. Alan, Michael, thank you so much for joining me for a chat. I'm keen to start by just exploring where your journey with miniatures began.
Well, a very early age, but knee high to a grasshopper, I think so. Yeah,
Right.
I think before buying Airfix figures, we used to make them. Not Airfix figures. We used to make figures from plasticine.
Right.
As kind of, I don't know what age it was, 5 or 6. They're fairly basic. And then as time progressed, we used to kind of build more of them, so you'd have almost not a regiment size, but it was kind of a little mass of them. And we had Lego as well, so we used to sit in Lego vehicles and things.
Right.
And, yeah. I think it was before anything round in Lego was around, wasn't it? They had wheels. Did it? Yes. Oh no, recently. I don't know. It wasn't. No. I can't remember. Lego.
I mean, was it always sort of, you mentioned the plasticine, building little units and squads and stuff. So was it always like a military army kind of thing, or was it just anything?
I think so. Not at the time necessarily. Not always, no. Although actually, we did used to have make little plasticine figures for scale electric track. Oh yeah, used to hollow out the tummies and put a red food dye in it and had them standing on the edge of the track. Obviously, when the car skidded off, made quite an impact. So that wasn't military, but it was quite fun. Big mind. Yeah, 6 kids. Yeah, but that was probably about 6 or 7 years old.
Right. So then, how did that then evolve?
It's gone downhill since.
But that must have, so obviously you stuck with it, right? And you then were moving to, you mentioned Airfix, right? So is that where things went next?
Yes. Yeah. It was we started early on, really, collecting minifigs, Airfix figures, packs, and the models as well. The kind of putting aircraft and ships and stuff, anything. Aircraft hanging from the bedroom ceiling and that sort of thing, and lots of ships covered in dust on the shelves.
Yeah,
so much so that when our parents moved house, obviously they took us with them, and we were in our teens by then, and we took the ships. There must have been probably about half a dozen of these Airfix ships, all rigged as well, the big ones, the big ones, and covered in dust. We put them on the bottom of the garden, got an air gun out, started shooting them. But the effect it had, because there's so much dust on it, as soon as it hit, you get a big puff of almost like smoke going up. So that's quite great. You're trying to take out the mast and when the mast kind of dropped, so you're still hanging by the rigging, just like you see in the films. Yeah, at the top.
That's great. Yeah, like proper special effects to sort of reenact a battle there.
Yeah, it's quite a surprise. Yeah, it worked just right.
Right. I mean, So, sorry, you're going to say?
No, I was going to say the holes you hit when they hit the hole. The holes were about the right kind of, well, a bit big, but they looked good. Looked quite realistic.
That's fantastic then. So, I mean, when did it then sort of start to move towards a sort of, what, I guess a more traditional or sort of getting closer to a professional kind of sculpting sort of hobby?
Uh, well, we used to Michael's model, which we used to go to in North Finchley.
Right.
There's a bloke behind the counter who Steve Atwood, and he used to sculpt figures, but he used to do it in a slightly weird way, which was carving back out of layers of plastic card glued together.
Right.
I thought it was intriguing, but we didn't really like the art as a method of doing it. But he said, "Well, I just got this new stuff in called Milliput. This is in the early '70s, mid '70s, yeah, mid '70s probably. You might be interested in trying it." So we started using that. Although we did use wool filler, which was very crude, and made about 3 or 4 figures out of that, which was wood. Yeah, it literally was wool filler. It was very crude.
Right.
But then he introduced us to this new Milliput at the time, and we started using it. Didn't like the effect on the fingers because it's not very nice to mix, but it had a great effect on with figures and stuff because you did need an armature, which we didn't understand at first because we're doing it already from because Steve Atwood he used a different technique, and so when we started making oh, right, the figures just went. Well, originally I think we used a cocktail stick. Oh yeah, that's right. And built it around that so they wouldn't flop. And then, just a minute, we should put some kind of skeleton inside, and realised that wire would work. Her dad is an electrician, so we got hold of some wire very easily. Made our own mannequins up and started working from there. And then generally working on figures which were 54 mil up to about 90 mil,
right,
or bigger, because we had by then joined the British Model Soldier Society, and they did competitions and things, and that was the sizes they kind of went for.
Right. So would they have been sort of historical soldiers, that sort of miniature?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh no, we did do some fancy. Well, actually, one of the first things I made was a little demon, and it turned out looking almost exactly like Fred Astaire. So it was just sort of sitting on its haunches, and for some reason it looked like Fred Astaire. I don't know how it wasn't copying him, or trying to copy. But from so we were soon moved on to historical more. Yeah, and then. Well, we'd always been into it because since we were buying FX toy soldiers, I think that's always kind of swayed us. And but we weren't adverse to fantasy.
No, at the time, no. Right. And was that? I mean, what kind of? I mean that sort of Fred Astaire. I mean, whether or not that was conscious or otherwise. Like, how were you?
It was conscious.
Sure. But how would you go about how did you learn how to sort of do the sort of shapes and the forms of sort of humans, I suppose?
I don't know. We didn't learn from any. I don't think we had any. Don't think we had any anatomy books. No, unless Mum bought us something after the first figure we made. She might have done, right. But I don't remember that.
So a lot just drawn from life.
Sorry?
Just drawing from life, I suppose. In that case.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of things I can just bring round. Although you might want to show pictures of those afterwards, but
sure. Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's no. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You could do something because these are ancient, 50 years old. Just blowing the dust off it. Literally, just blowing the dust. And they're quite embarrassing now. They're quite embarrassing now, but
they do not look embarrassing to me. Wow,
that's about 1970.
That's amazing.
35, 76. He's a Madras infantryman with a. Come up with the names of the monkeys now. Oh, they're not good to them.
But that one looked after that type used to look after this group as well. I made sure that was right.
Right. That's
before
great.
actually,
That's
Oh,
something.
wow.
No, I only started making horses because we used to buy 90mm models of post-militaire, and their horses by, I think it's Ray Lamb, wasn't it?
Yeah,
were absolutely amazing, and that's why that's what I modelled this on in terms of musculature,
Right.
because their post-militaire ones were so perfect, and I thought this is great, so you can see it all the way around, and rather than from anatomy, but you have to keep turning the pages to see what happens around the corner.
Right.
So yeah, they're lovely models, post-militaire ones, and I had a few of them.
that's all scratch.
That's scratch built.
I mean, we used to make scratch built figures and enter them into competitions
Right.
for the British Model Soldier Society. And actually, when we joined Workshop, which we're going to, we couldn't enter anymore because we're professionals.
Right.
So we stopped doing these big scale figures and started doing little 28mm
Right.
figures.
I did another horse, little vignette, and took it to that size, 90mm, to a show, and halfway through, one of the judges kept, they were judging it. Everybody was out of the room, and the judge came up to us and said, "Can you come with me, please?" And very sternly said, "Is that a post-militaire horse head you got on there?" I said, "No, it's all scratch built as it said." And he didn't believe me. But I don't think he did. I said, "I can scratch it so you can see the milliput underneath." He said, "Oh, no, it's all right. Don't worry about that." So they did believe me eventually, but that was a real compliment at the time.
Yeah.
It still would be.
So this is
That's
all
fantastic.
mid-60s.
Yeah. That's amazing. And there's real like dynamism and like storytelling in those models and those vignettes that you just showed us. It's really incredible stuff.
Yeah, they're fun to do.
Yeah.
I haven't made one like that for a long time, really.
Right. Yeah, because I imagine it's a slightly different undertaking because presumably you're sort of thinking about the entirety of the piece as you sculpt it. It's not just a single miniature, right?
And something like that, you're not restricted by how it's going to mold. So certainly you can make it all in one piece if you want to. And
right.
Unlike what we do now, which is generally in plastics, which are the same kind of size, but they have to be in pieces.
Right, of course, yeah. Yeah, different production restrictions, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, speaking of, you obviously then went from that hobby space into a professional space. How did you end up working at Games Workshop?
Well, the model shop we mentioned, Michael's Models in North Finchley, we used to go regularly in there every Saturday, wasn't it?
On the bus.
Yeah,
with our friend Mark.
And they knew there's a shop which had opened up, Tally Ho Games in North Finchley, which sold board games, mostly board games, isn't it?
Yeah, but some miniatures.
Yeah, it might have been a few miniatures. And they heard that Games Workshop, who used to sell their board games, were starting a figure range, and they were needing sculptors. So somebody in that shop contacted Steve Atwood, who's the person in Michael's Models, and he mentioned to us. So we walked over to Tally Ho Games, which is about 2 minutes across the road, I think, and mentioned our names, and somehow they mentioned to Games Workshop.
They put our names forward to Workshop.
To Ian Livingstone and Steve Jackson.
They said, somebody rang and said, "Could you produce kind of 3 figures or something and come in and see us?"
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so we did.
Right. It might be probably Albifori, wouldn't it?
It might be.
I think
Albifori. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they took you on, and you started producing miniatures for them.
Yeah.
It was almost soon when we went in, though, they had a couple of other people working. They had somebody called Humphrey Ledbetter already working for them, and I think Brian was doing some.
He's done some,
Brian Ansell.
But this is when they had one shop in Dalling Road, with the officers above. We went down to Dalling Road, and it was amazing. It was when we went into workshop. We've never seen a shop quite like that. It's quite small, but just completely round, full of figures. And it took us upstairs, and they had a look at the figures we made. And I think it was about an hour later we were actually sort of more or less signed up.
Right.
But we're still at school at the time, so they signed us up as a freelance people until we left school.
Right.
And it took us on full time.
And that was Ian Livingstone and Steve Jackson. Brian wasn't around at that point. No, he was around, but we hadn't met him.
No.
Right.
I think we met him a few months later.
Yeah.
When would be about 1980 actually, when we left school, I think.
Yeah, probably.
And we drove up to Newark at the time, which where the factory is based. Called it factory. It is a factory. It was a factory. And
Millgate, yeah.
Millgate, yeah. And all crammed into whose car was it?
Ian Ian Livingstone had a very nice white
Lotus
car. I don't know. At the time it was really quite trendy. He only gets 2 people in normally. On the back seat, you can get somebody else if they're sort of scrunched up. Right. So luckily, we were both was quite small, so we took in turns to get into the back. That was the first time we went to Newark and the factory.
Yeah, it's quite fun. It was all very. Couldn't believe our luck, really. I think at the time. Not just being in the car. I mean, being taken on a full-time job and making figures for a living.
Yeah. I mean, what was it like at the factory then? What, like, sort of seeing? Was it a large operation? Was there loads of stuff going on? Or,
right. No, I think one casting machine, might be able to.
One of that too, by then.
The casting machine. The casting was done on the first floor. There's a museum down below, but you could see the gaps in the floorboards down below. You could see the museum underneath the casting area. Which is a good idea.
No, I'm sure it wasn't very health kind of health and safety. So, hot lead.
Yikes! Yeah,
I'm sure it happened.
By the time it would reach, because they're really tall rooms, I'm sure
it might have dried out.
It just got a ping on the head,
right?
But no heat.
Right. So then you're doing full-time miniatures sort of sculpting. I mean, what kind of stuff were you doing at that time? Because obviously Citadel was sort of still starting up really back then.
Well,
so
schoolwork, and in our spare time we were making figures. They did kind of give us a list of things, didn't they?
The Thing Factory was the first, which was sort of adventurers, dungeon adventurers type thing. I mean, the first thing I remember making was a thief who was crouched forward of a dagger.
Right.
And I've still got him around somewhere.
Oh, we did. Including some things which are loosely based on minifigs, orcs. They minifigs made some pinhead kind of orcs, little tiny things with bow legs.
And square shields.
And we always liked them. We always had a large amount of them. And I think we just couldn't resist making a few in a similar style. I can't remember what they're called, though, in the range. Red something?
It could be Red Orcs. Was it Red Orcs?
I can't remember.
You bought
really early on. So, yeah, there were some Red Orcs early on, weren't they? The sort of that range.
And I made something which was called a Tusker. Remember, that was out of Minipup. And the orcs sat on that. It's like a rhinoceros without any horn.
Right.
And so I sent the model in, filling in the middle just to pack it out with plasticine, and then covered it in mini-putt. Sent it up to Brian, who was doing the mold making at the time, and as well as running the factory. And I got a phone call. He said, "What do you put in that?" I said, "Plasticine." Why? He said, "Don't ever do that again." It just exploded in the mold.
Oh, wow.
Because it is so much pressure and into a liquid center, which would have been liquid by the time because of the heat.
Right.
And it blew the mold apart.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
So
nobody told us how to make things for mold.
We've never made stuff before, especially for production like that. So it was all trial and error for the First
I mean, that's
25.
yeah.
No,
mostly art trial
Yeah.
and Brian's error.
no, it wasn't.
That's incredible, though. Yeah, so actually, like learning, like literally learning on the job as you're going. I mean, you mentioned some of the stuff around, like the restrictions on from a production perspective on molds and things like that. Were you just literally finding out, okay, I can't do it this way because that's going to affect the casting process and mold making?
Yeah, Brian did give us a few. I'm sure he must have given us a few guides lines.
Yeah, I think he probably did. Yeah,
that will never effing cast. What do you think you're doing?
Okay. I'll take the arm off too.
Make it 2-part model, that kind of thing.
Right.
But in the early days, we didn't see a lot of Brian really. We used to take him into Dowling Road, and Ian and Steve would have a look at them, and they'll say, "Oh, how long do you spend on this?" He said, "Oh, well, about 5 hours." Oh, really? I don't know about that. And we're being paid by the hour.
We're getting £3 an hour.
£3 an hour.
So we expected to get £15
for a figure in the time.
This is 1978, 1980. And before that, the only money we'd got from anything else was paper round. And that was about £1.20 a week. So
so we're doing quite well.
Yeah. That's amazing. Would there be quibbles about the number of hours and that sort of thing?
Oh yeah.
If they could, try and knock off a few pounds here and there.
we didn't. Well, we didn't care too much because we just really liked doing it. So.
Yeah, and then obviously Games Workshop itself started to change, and Citadel started to become a bigger factor. It's sort of in the company, and then Brian Ansell took over the company at one point. I mean, what was your sort of perspective on those transitions and changes within Games Workshop and Citadel?
We were out of it for a lot of the time.
Yeah, because we were working from home down in London. And used to go up every 2 weeks or every month, every 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah, around about 1980, when we left school. And he started the drive, so we could get up to Nottingham, Newark at the time.
Yeah.
So we're only up there sort of every couple of weeks.
Yeah, for a day or two, and then come back here. So we didn't actually get to see, kind of be right in the middle of it. We're right in the middle of it in that we're right in the office space and see things going on. But it always seemed very easygoing, and it was
always very, very easygoing.
Well, it was cottage industry at the time, and so everybody knew everybody. I suppose by, I don't know how many people were there, but
about 12 when we
the early 80s.
Yeah. About 12. That's everybody.
Right.
Then there's obviously Dowling Road, which is another. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sure we got the numbers wrong, but and then over time it obviously increased huge amounts, vastly. And so who was that walking past in the corridor? I haven't a clue. I haven't seen him before. But we did used to be of almost first name terms with everybody, and then you couldn't remember everybody after that. After 84, 85.
I suppose so. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and then obviously that also started to become the era of Warhammer Fantasy becoming a main thing, and then later on 40k. I mean, I guess that must have changed a lot of the sort of lists of miniatures you were being asked to produce, and the needs of the business. I mean, what was that sort of thing like?
I mean, I remember. You might remember the date, Spacefarers, when we were making Spacefarers.
That was early
80s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Early 80s. I mean, that was really good fun because they're a different scale, and they're doing different things because they're gun armed rather than sword
weapon.
Smaller.
Hand weapons.
Yeah. So it was quite a different. It's quite fresh and everything. So we're really enjoying doing those.
And then the range stopped really. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't a clue how well they sold. Presumably they did all right, but and then we didn't receive sci-fi again until 40k, early days of 40k. Which was never really a big thing of mine. I mean, I didn't particularly enjoy doing science fiction.
We always preferred doing fantasy side of things rather than science fiction.
And then, if at all possible, with a huge amount of historical reference. if we get away with it, and we normally did. It didn't really, they didn't really mind a lot most of the time.
Right. Is that why you preferred the fantasy side of things? Because you could bring in that sort of real world history.
I think so. Yeah.
Right. Because there is a bit of that in the 40k world as well. Those influences. So were you finding ways to bring that in there too?
Yeah. But I mean,
there wasn't much by that point. Other people were doing concepts because we used to do our own concepts as well. Well, early on, although Tony Atkin used to draw them after we made them, rather than he didn't really do concepts as such for us anyway. But so we by the time 40k came along, there was quite a lot more concept artists who sort of come up with lots of different ideas. So
and they give us drawings, and that was an easy way to work. I mean, occasionally early on we did come up with we just did a range like the Goblin Fanatics. I made one or two just on I was at a weekend as well. It wasn't even during work time, just for a laugh. And thought, oh, this would be a good idea. Somebody kind of goblin on the end of a ball and massive ball and chain, and just swing around. And Rick saw it and said, "Oh, it's great. I'll put them in. I'll get them into kind of Warhammer." And then we made a whole range of them.
Actually, the Empire range, really, they hadn't asked for Empire range, had they? I think
it was called Empire,
but they hadn't worked out that thing.
It was all kind of different kind of periods of medieval Renaissance.
Yeah, it was a bit mixed.
Yeah,
right.
So I think it was during the summer or something. We made about 3 or 4 figures, which were Langenex, basically, with a slight fancy twist.
Right,
and that's how really that general look started.
Right, and that completely defined it, didn't it?
Conscious.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did about 3 or 4. I think took them in and then we do it that way. Yeah.
Well, and then Pretonius gone off into the more high medieval style, 14th century style.
Right.
That was later, I think.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah.
It's a long time ago.
If we're getting stuff wrong, dates and things,
you can just put a marker at the bottom of the screen.
This is
But one thing,
rubbish.
Not at all. It's fascinating stuff. I mean, I was just thinking about the really big miniatures that you were looking at as well. You know, like the giant, the original sort of Citadel giant, and sort of putting that together. I mean, what was? That must have been like pushing the boundaries in what was possible at the time, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, the mold makers weren't happy. No. Definitely weren't happy. Especially weren't happy with his dragon.
Yeah, the big
the dragon.
Chicken dragon. Yeah. No, they weren't happy. Brian was very happy for me to do it. I can't remember if he suggested it. It was. I think it wasn't it something like a farewell to Duncan, who had been running workshop at the time, I think, or Citadel at the time, and Brian said, "Do you want to make a model kind of dedicated to him?" I think that's what it was. But anyway, so I'll give it a go. And he said, "Make a big one." Okay, big dragon. So I wasn't sure how it was going to. I knew I couldn't cast both sides. It'd be impossible to cast both sides of the body in a mold, because we hadn't got molds that size.
Right.
And so I thought slicing it like a Swiss roll might work best. And the amount of problems they had with that in a mold, and trying to get it to.
I mean, even the slices were a couple of 2 inches thick. There's not many molds around
that big to add layers to the back of it to get it to work.
Right.
And and then in instructions, Brian said, "Can you do some instructions about putting it together?" I thought, okay. I then put one together. That was, and I said at the bottom, "You might need a hammer." And Brian said, "No, you can't put that."
that on the instructions.
Bill can't put that on the instructions. I don't think it went in or not. I haven't seen instructions for years.
It's a beautiful model, though. I mean, did it sell well? Were these like popular? Because they must have been quite expensive at the time as well.
Up until the point the mold completely gave up. Right. I don't know how many molds they did make of it, but they didn't last very long.
Right.
And I think I got fed up with lasting. I don't know. I don't know what the real reason. Well, they stopped, but
it was taking up a lot of time. I think, dancing it.
Right.
But they did. I think they did sell. Yeah.
Right.
Well.
Yeah.
I think sell now even better.
Find one.
I think now, if you could find one, is
quite pricey.
Yeah.
So I've got one complete.
Sorry, go on.
That's right. I've got one complete one at home.
Right.
When
in part.
Well, the wings aren't on.
Oh, yeah.
The wings are there and the tails there. Yeah.
They did recently have one at the Warhammer World exhibit as well. I think it was. I don't know if it was just temporarily, but I think it may have been the one from the catalogue, the sort of famous dragon catalogue as well.
Oh, this one I painted. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Great. I mean, it's stunning. Yeah. It still looks absolutely amazing. Yeah. Incredible piece. So at some point, then you moved from London up to Nottingham. And sort of became more closely, I guess, involved in the sort of the ongoing sort of changes to Citadel and that sort of thing. I mean, what was that transition like for you?
I mean, that was 1987 when we moved up.
Right.
Yeah.
Mostly because Michael's girlfriend at the time got a
place at Nottingham University.
Right.
And they had Games Workshop had been asking us to move up for quite a number of years. And we always said, nah, it's too cozy at home, easy going, and we could do the work exactly the same at home or out in the studio where we were. No. Then when my girlfriend said that she got a place at Nottingham, I said, oh, okay, so we could make a move, and I'm tagged on.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I say by that point we knew more people in Nottingham than we did sort of mates in the London area, so it was quite easy to move to Nottingham because you're just amongst friends anyway.
Yeah,
by that point.
Right. Yeah, a lot of parties and things. So like I suppose student years, we never did go to university or anything. So must have been similar to that, the social side of it.
Right. I mean, what was the culture at Games Workshop like then during that period? Was it a lot more? Was it sort of a bit freer and easier and fun?
Yeah, it was. It was very relaxed,
really. Well, if there was anything going on, we didn't see much sort of. I think they kept us in a bubble. All the sculptors probably in a bubble away from any sort of nastiness going on if there was anything.
Right.
And Brian always liked to keep sculptors happy all the time, which is great. I mean, we were absolutely happy doing what we're doing.
Yeah. And you're quite prolific sculptors, right? So you can work quite quickly, I believe. I mean,
yeah, it has been known. Yeah.
Is that like what do you know why that is, or is that just a sort of natural thing, or what is it that makes you able to work perhaps quicker than some of your peers?
I don't know. It's not. It's just a natural thing because we can't work any other speed really.
No,
right. we like. I think we probably get bored of a figure we're working on towards the end of the figure, and you want to get onto the next figure. So you're sort of. But when we're making them for ourselves, we'll have about 5 lined up.
So different stages of kind of being finished. So once you finish a bit on, you put it down, pick up the next one, and do a bit more on that, and then put it down, and that kind of thing. And it keeps it all fresh as well.
Kind of like a batch sculpting approach. You would do batch painting almost.
Yeah.
Did you have any favorite stuff to be working on during that period then? Sort of so in the late 80s as 40Ks come in and Warhammer's now fully established, were there any favorite lines or miniatures you were working on?
I suppose the
Imperial Guard were
Imperial Guard.
They were funnish to do, and the Katachan jungle fighters I quite enjoyed making. I don't know why, because they're ridiculous in terms of musculature, and
I didn't particularly like working on.
We didn't make any.
Did you? I did a few. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I don't know.
No, I did. If I remember rightly. Yeah. But there's also the Dogs of War around about that sort of time, which were good fun because all based on Rick's sort of brain, basically. What he wanted to, I think, see and give suggestions of what they could be like. And and I think Dave Gallagher was doing concept art at the time, and Dave's great. He knows he's got a historical head as well, completely firmly based in what you can and you can't do with a sword or armor or anything else. So when he did concept drawing, knew that's going to work because it's sort of,
but he just right, and it's very quick to do it. So it's kind of, if you watch him over his shoulder, he just kind of knocks them out, sketch out a concept sketch, kind of every 10 minutes, quarter of an hour. Yeah, that's great. And all of them generally kind of could make a miniature. So yeah, he was great to work with.
Yeah. And the Dogs of War were definitely an opportunity, it seems, to bring in some of that historical influence, right? So there's some real, like, proper, well, I say real units, I suppose, that you might have seen in real armies, or at least hints of and elements of real historical units. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Brian always knew that we were probably far more interested in historical than we were in fantasy. So obviously it would be a strong hint that we'd be put on these particular ranges. Give us half.
I think I only ever made one Space Marine.
I didn't make any Space Marines. I'm proud to say I've never made a Space Marine. It just don't work. You can't. No. They can't hold guns. They can't aim. They can't do anything.
Can't scratch your heads. Take your head off. Bring the pauldron up.
I know they're nice to paint, but as actual working things, they don't work.
Yeah, I mean, were there any other ranges that you said, no, I'm really not interested in that. We don't want to work on these particular side. This particular
didn't
range.
Always work.
Yeah,
chaos.
Chaos. I'm not interested in the chaos stuff, but
for some reason,
Brian was really into it. Brian Ansell, that's his bag.
And obviously, Chaos Dwarves came along. Did you make any? Or was it just me?
No,
it's just me.
Nothing to do with them.
No, yeah, it was me. But this was obviously with Rick involved. It was quite a fun project to do because he wasn't taking it seriously either, and I wasn't. And Brian was, I think. Right. So, and I think the thing about the enormous hats, the conversations with Rick you had in the past, and with another.
Yeah, I mean, so because that would have been one of Brian's sort of final or later projects as he was sort of leaving Games Workshop.
It was actually. It would have been one of the last. Yeah, it was early 90s, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. And so did that. I mean, I guess there must have been another period of transition there post Brian Ansell's era. So as Tom Kirby took over, things changed again.
Yeah, I mean, Tom wasn't so. I suppose wasn't hands-on with the sculptors at all. Occasionally seeing around at the office, but
again, he wasn't hands-on. He just left us in our sort of bubble, I suppose, all of us, and it sort of worked. It was working well anyway. So.
It's always the best thing to do with sculptures. Leave them alone, so they fester rather than have any input.
But it wasn't much. I mean, we didn't notice much difference in the transition.
No, although by that stage we'd moved to Enfield Chambers, not Enfield Chambers. No, the near the castle.
Castle Boulevard.
Castle Boulevard. Yeah, and we're up on a balcony in a kind of a room adjacent to where the main big, massive, great office was, and that was good fun to look over the balcony and drop things at people's heads. No, we didn't do it. No, but it felt as if we were kind of again, in our own bubble up there and away from everybody, which is what we needed, peace and quiet.
I mean, you say that, but it's been suggested to me that you were both quite keen on sort of practical jokes or a bit of fun around the office. Is that is that true?
Obviously, if it seemed appropriate, if we got bored, we'd start elastic band fights.
Yeah, which did get out of control a few times. It was normally the designers against the artists, and we went into the artist area because they couldn't shoot one of the bands where we were because too many wet miniatures, and it eventually got closed down by John Blanche, who was
that's right,
yeah, he was most disturbed by the whole thing that happening,
the raids going on. Yeah,
he was kind of in charge of the artists at the time, so
it was banished.
It's a shame.
Yeah, I forgot about those. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like definitely that sort of sense of fun was maintained in the certainly that
we tried
initial moves, right? And as things evolved and changed, because it must have been growing quite a lot as well. I mean, it sounds like Castle Boulevard was much bigger than Enfield Chambers and the area and the
I think because obviously Tom was expanding way beyond Brian's idea, and we know obviously not just occasional who's that around the office. Who are they? It was a whole
what department's that?
I think you department. Oh right. But, it's always very exciting because loads of people, new people coming in, and obviously we would all end up going down the pub quite often. There's a lot of people from the studio, so you get to know people quite well. Over a few beers.
It was a great point at Eastwood, Eastwood, where it is now, where Lenton, where Workshop had us all originally had us all in one, all the designers in one room, and then I don't know whose idea it was. It was to put partitions up between, so you got 2 or 3 designers in every room along near the windows, which was what we need to be next daylight, and couldn't believe it. So me and Alan put up bookcases between the door and the glass from the passageway or the rest of the room,
in between and
our desks. So you could always drop off, fall asleep on the table if necessary.
On the table?
Not like that. I don't mean get up on the table and lie down because there's too many bits on there. But
yeah, they could have a little doze in the afternoon if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
You always hear the door go. The door's going. The manager was coming in. So
it's not it hadn't gotten fully corporate by that point in time. There was still enough sort of
space there was
getting towards corporate.
Yeah, I think that's why we Belden did that kind of thing, because it was becoming corporate, too corporate. Really, it wasn't like it was.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, one thing of having worked on so many different ranges over the years, I wondered if there was a sort of a secret ingredient that you're willing to share or talk about. That like, what do you think?
Green stuff.
So just green stuff.
Sorry, let you finish.
Well, I was going to say, is there something that you find yourselves doing to give like an extra visual punch or a sort of real presence to miniatures that kind of sets them apart, I suppose?
Not consciously. Really. I mean, not consciously, but I think we always like to push as far as you could go animation wise. You could do what could work in the mold. Sometimes it didn't, but we did try to push that a bit more. So you didn't end up with a flat sort of stance. You with a 3D figure, so nicely from different angles rather than just the front and the back.
Right.
And I think because we've done quite a lot of reenactment by that stage, we kind of me and Alan and a couple of other people knew how to handle how weapons should be handled, how you shoot and so on, and what position you should be in, and using hand weapons, kind of swords and whatever, pole arms, and that we kind of transferred into the figures, because we like shooting a musket. I mean, you place it in there and you lean into it and look. Your head goes over to one side. You look along the barrel, not like that, but at a slight angle.
Right.
And we always used to make sure it looked right as we could, holding any of the figures holding the weapons, the right poses, and kind of how they balance on their. If something's running at full tilt, what way the body should go if the leg's going that direction. It should counterbalance the angle of the leg. So that kind of thing. But
is there a fine line between that, like realism, and certainly in fantasy and science fiction miniatures, like the almost the over the top kind of nature of stuff, or oversized things, or the less real aspects of a miniature? Do you have to find a sort of...
Yeah, we never really liked doing oversized weapons.
No,
but that was the whole idea with Workshop, was to do.
I mean, it was what people expected. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, we didn't like doing that too much, but obviously we had to.
What I really hated doing was kind of heavily detailed, over the toply detailed kind of clothing, armor, and so on. So there's no flat surface detail at all that you could paint. You had to put everything in. That didn't happen very often because we didn't often get the really ornate things to make anyway. But wherever possible, we would make it less ornate, I think.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, you see that sort of trajectory continue now to a much more detailed sort of spaces. Like you say, there are a few flat, just clean plate armor spaces now. So was that like almost the artistic direction that was being given? Is like, let's go down this line, or right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's all sort of based on concepts that were coming out at the time from concept artists and everything.
Right.
So, and I think Brian just liked really detailed stuff.
Yeah.
Well, this is in the 80s. Sorry, 80s, early 90s,
and 90s. Yeah.
But that carried on, obviously.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But it wasn't our bag really. But if you try to make it like that, again, make it like that.
No, we did.
Sure.
But we didn't enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I believe you both really enjoyed and had a sort of good time around was the Lord of the Rings work.
Oh yeah.
And when that came into Games Workshop, I mean, what was that period like when you were getting to...
Very exciting. Yeah.
It's probably the most exciting thing since working at Workshop from the beginning.
Right.
That was exciting at the time. And then this was the actual major point.
It's probably the pinnacle
of working on
right.
Lord of the Rings.
Because it's almost like working on a historical range, but for fancy, in that we got reference material coming through, which is photographs of the people in all their layers of clothing and armor and so on, and from every different angle. So you couldn't ask for a better reference material. And the
weapons were more or less exactly the size they should be.
Right.
And the anatomy, luckily, was back to more human proportions.
Right.
Which was great.
Yeah.
It was a lovely sort of breath of fresh air.
But yeah, they didn't want us to make it kind of Games Workshop proportions. They wanted natural.
Uline
did.
Cinemas. They wanted completely separate from Games Workshop look.
Right.
And Workshop did as well.
Yeah.
Right. So no.
Yeah. So it was far more fun.
Yeah. And
then all the connections because of that were very exciting.
Yeah.
Meeting people and going over to New Zealand umpteen times. I don't know.
But I guess we went over there umpteen times, but I think a Workshop sent us over there once or twice.
Yeah, we paid for the rest of it.
Right. Right. Because you actually went, and you obviously went and saw the workshops and the studio and all that sort of stuff, right? And were in one of the films as well, right?
Two of them.
Two.
Well,
okay,
one of the Rings and
one of the Hobbit. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Great. Yeah. And was it just fascinating? Was it just about being on the set and seeing it, or did you? What was it that drove you to go multiple times?
Well, originally,
everything.
It was originally John Howley, one of the concept artists on Lord of the Rings, was a member of our reenactment group that we're in, and he said he kept coming back with little tiny snip. Well, when we met him, it kept little snippets of information. So I had a little camcorder. Could you talk about the? This is about
1999.
Yeah, and he said they started talking gobbledygook, and I said to put the camera down. He said, "Yeah, I can't talk about it on camera." But
You said you must.
he said, "You've got to go over
there. You've got to go over there." But we said that's never going to happen, I don't think. But then, within about a year, that's when we were asked to.
Workshop got the license.
Yeah, and we're to pitch to make figures for a pitch. John Blanche and Andy James were going over to America to pitch this for this new film. And can you make a couple of figures before? Because we want a unit to go over a unit of goblins at the time. Because the only reference online was the picture. I think it's 2 pictures of goblins.
Right.
We didn't have the orcs or goblins. It wasn't even mentioned what they were. So made these 2 units up. Well, we made 2 figures. Michael actually had to go away that weekend, so I had to finish off his one. I've did my one as well. Monday they were taking and given to the painters. They painted them up overnight, I think, or 2 units, put on a baseboard and sort of scenic setting. And I think by Wednesday they were flying off to America to do the pitch.
Right.
It was pretty quick like that.
Wow,
and then they got the pitch. They got the job.
Yeah. Did you want to be in on the? Did you have to sort of petition to be involved in the Lord of the Rings team, or were you just a natural fit for it?
Actually, no, because I don't know how that. Well, Alan Merritt. The first we heard about was when Alan Merritt came in to our little office, which we explained before, and said we're going to pitch this, and that's when we mentioned about John Howe being a friend of ours, and he sort of stopped on his way out the door. But really? So I think from then on, because they knew we used somebody involved, possibly that was why we were thrown into it, but possibly also because they're humans, mostly humanoids, and we like doing humanoids, and they know.
We had expressed an interest in doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Or more than an interest. And so, it just it came about with Brian Nelson as well, who's loves doing that kind of thing.
Right.
The Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it was actually absolutely brilliant time. And the second year or third year that we got to go over there. We went to.
It was the last day of the pickups in 2002, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was 2003. Beginning of 2003, because the pickups were really quite late.
For the third film.
For the third film.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Mm. So that's when we started our fantastic journey, basically with Lord of the Rings and going over to New Zealand a lot. There and back again. Yeah.
I did that.
Yes, we're
TM.
Yeah. Yeah, we got on very well with Peter Jackson because he was interested in historical stuff. World War I, as you know,
he collects
in big amounts. Yeah. So we hit it off with him, and we invited over whenever we went over to New Zealand. He invited on set for as long as you wanted to. Well, it didn't matter what film it is.
No. So we managed to walk around the jungle, King Kong's on Skull Island.
Oh, wow.
When they were filming that. We're actually shoved by Andrew Leslie,
who's unfortunately now dead.
Yeah, he was the
cinematographer.
Yeah, and he said, hey, "Just go and get lost in there." I don't think he meant get lost. He just kind of pushed us on and just walk through it, and you could in the middle you couldn't see the edges, so it was it was on one of the biggest sound stages, well, the biggest sound stage in the southern hemisphere, and they filled it with trees and foliage and cameras. And Naomi Watts.
Right.
It's very nice.
I mean, were there any sort of similarities? Did you get to see the sort of Weta workshop and the sort of that sort of thing? Did you know, were there any things that were similar in how they worked on special effects to how you worked on sculpting miniatures, or was it quite a different world?
It was a few levels above, really. I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it was
levels above.
Similar setup into those kind of rooms with alcoves with people sitting in them, generally sculpting or or doing artwork. Yeah, and
but I mean, Western Studios again is quite young at that point, and it was quite a shambles really. It was you could get lost in there, which we did once.
With Peter. Peter got lost in there with us.
Yeah, literally. It was at night.
Yeah, after hours.
Right.
And the lights have been turned. Well, that's another story. I don't know if you want to go into that or not. That's quite funny. But yeah. So it was we started going to Weta in 2000. Would have been 2003.
Yeah,
and for about 14 years after that, and we could see it evolving and getting bigger and bigger. And getting more things added to it, more rooms. It was amazing to see.
But every time we turned up there, I thought, oh, that corridor wasn't there before, or that room wasn't there before. I know we've moved that.
That's great. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
I was going to
just a great setup, which was, but it was completely random.
Right.
I'm sure it was very well organised, but to us, it seemed like it was quite random.
Sure. I mean, it sounds kind of like some of the stories you hear about earlier Citadel and some of the design studio sort of spaces there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I suppose it had that sort of feel in a way, because it was organised chaos.
Right. Yeah. Did you ever get the chance to play the actual Lord of the Rings game with anyone from there, with Peter Jackson or anyone like that?
No, there is that video, isn't there, of us over there with Peter with sculpting thing, but
right.
And Alessio was convinced.
Alessio Cavatori, who wrote the rules. He assumed that people would want to play the game, and that there would be a point that we could. So he brought over everything he needed. And no, we ransacked the Wellington store.
Right.
And they brought stuff over, and Alessio set it up and a table up, and expecting. Well, Peter came in, had a look at it, and he was very happy with it and kept pointing things out.
I think Alessio was hoping you might want a game. We like a game. As Alessio can be very persuasive, but it didn't work.
No, didn't have the time or the inclination. I don't think.
No,
I don't think he'd ever done any kind of wargaming before. So
right.
No. He likes toy soldiers. He really likes toy soldiers, but not to game with, just to to convert, paint, and everything else. That's how he used to wind down
in the evening.
In the evening, spend about an hour converting figures and painting them and stuff.
Right. Oh, fantastic! But then, obviously, a point in time came when you decided to leave Games Workshop, moved on from Games Workshop, and set up your own miniatures company. I was just curious about what that journey was like, and actually going out on your own.
Well, in about 1985, Brian set us up with his dad with Wargames Foundry, because he knew we were itching to make historical figures, and Brian's dad at the time had retired, so he wanted to do something. So he was in charge of Wargames Foundry. Now, around about 2001, things have gone downhill a bit. The last year of Wargames Foundry, last year we were at Wargames Foundry, and we said we're going to leave. We're going to set up our own company in 2001. So in 2001, we started up Perry Miniatures.
Right.
So by the time we left Games Workshop in 2014, we had this company running for about 14 years,
right,
or 13 years.
I didn't realize it was
easy. Yeah, it was easy cushion, big cushion to sort of fall back on. We didn't know if it was going to work or not. It was just by sort of
trial and error.
I mean, it'd been working for the last 13 years, but whether it would actually support us or not,
right?
But it's fine.
Yeah, because it was pure historicals that you were producing through Perry Miniatures, right?
Yeah, it's kind of what we always wanted to do in a way.
What we're sort of passionate about, really.
Yeah. But I mean, even so, Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit were like working, as I said, like working on a historical project, and with all the add-ons as well. What we got up to,
I mean, what are your favourite historical periods to explore in miniatures? Then are you drawn again and again to particular time periods and particular events?
Yeah, we're sort of. I mean, I'm really into Napoleonic, into the Napoleonic period. I've actually made I think it's about 12 different ranges of Napoleonic armies. But I go back to the early 15th century Agincourt period. I made ranges from that, and trying to think, 1860s. Well, sort of American Civil War. That's about as late as I've done. You've done late and earlier.
I do like obscure wars, but mid to late 15th century War of the Roses period is something I enjoy, and 19th century European and colonial ranges I've done quite a few of, which are enjoyable to do. I can't say 18th century apart from Mulburin has ever really kind of floated my boat, but Mulburin is another period which is, I find quite interesting. Other than that, I've done Second World War and I've done Second World War. I've just touched the edges of Second World War, and there's so many more. I didn't go for the main German armies of 1944, army of 1944, and the Americans and British. I did more obscure stuff than that. But I do, if I can find an obscure war,
we'll be on it.
We'll be on it.
Yeah, sandwich.
Yeah. We don't always expect. I did the Carlist War range, which is something that even people in Spain have never come across.
Right.
But it's the earliest civil war, not earliest civil war, 1830s.
I think you just glazed over, didn't you?
Yeah. But anyway, I made a range. They're very the big hats, which are either red or blue, and they're very colourful. And they fought the French Foreign Legion, British, and I thought I'd make a range.
Right.
I think it does all right. And there's a number of ranges have come out from other companies since, and with a few books out. So, yeah, I think that kind of obscurity.
Yeah. I mean, what is it? Are you driven more by, like, is it about the uniforms? Is it about the sort of the actual historical events? What kind of thing draws you to a given war?
Diary accounts. Diary. If you come across a good diary from a particular campaign,
right,
and then come across good, kind of good description of uniforms as well.
Right. Well, I mean, uniforms are probably the main thing. That's
probably
that's the thing you see first of all, and then if you come across diary accounts, they're great as well. But in general, it's the whole thing really. I mean, it can be a painting from the period. They go, oh, I've never seen that before, that period, or
need yours from the army to look like that in the painting, but put it on the table and move it around.
Yeah.
That's what kind of inspires. Yeah, it can be anything really, but anything fairly minor.
Yeah. I mean, one question I was going to ask about. I mean, we talked about Dogs of War, but were there any other really obscure influences or historical sort of Easter eggs, I guess, that you managed to get into Warhammer ranges anywhere?
I think they're all pretty obvious, as you must.
We did some of the Imperial Guard were dressed as sort of, I suppose, Franco-Prussian or 1870s Germans.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, one of the salesmen got a hold of these and just said, "Oh, can you do some pith helmets, heads,
like for Zulu War?"
It didn't explain. It didn't explain too much. I said, "Yeah, okay." So we did a few of these. They went away, and the next thing we knew, he had stuck these heads on the Prussian body, made them into the Rorke's type.
Right. Yeah.
Figures. Now we hadn't really got much to do with that because some of the heads are sort of really weirdly put on the bodies. So when we saw them,
and he said, "Oh, don't worry, they're just for this one complete or one game we're going to do
demonstration game."
And then all of a sudden, and then they suddenly appeared in the range. Oh, cool.
I mean, the head. If they'd ask us, could you put their heads on?
Yeah, we've done that.
But they're so. Fine.
Because that was the Praetorian.
That's it,
Dorian.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we didn't really have much to do there.
and that wasn't very subtle either.
Sure. Yeah.
Very obvious what they were
Yeah.
trying to be.
I guess my final question was just about the historical games that you still play today, because I understand you still play some pretty big scale games, and you get together with other alums from Games Workshop as well. Could you tell us a little bit about some of those games that you're playing?
Well, I mean, either at my house or Michael's house, we both have sort of wargame rooms which can hold a 15 or 12-foot by 6-foot table.
Amazing.
And we regularly play, really. I suppose every couple of weeks, maybe. Sometimes we run campaigns, which are sort of great to, usually invite about 10 or 12 people. A lot of people, names you'd know, like Alessio, Ali Morrison, John Sard, Jervis Johnson, involved in these campaigns. And they can go on for about 6 months, generating battles, and all done on the map in the old style with a pin and in the map where people are, where units are.
And once forces combine in one area, we'll set up the table accordingly and game that.
But yeah, I mean, we'll obviously also have one-off battles all the time as well, just sort of not campaign related.
No. Other periods. Yeah. And
I mean, it often happens when a friend of ours or friends of ours come up for the weekend. It usually involves sort of war at some point.
Right.
So we regularly do it. Yeah.
And we always, it's quite handy either inviting Rick, because he knows, mind you, we know the rules for Black Powder or Hell Season now, but we always used to invite him because he just had things he wrote and got off the top of his head. And then and Jervis now with V&F as well.
Valor Fortitude,
right?
Set of rules
we sell on our Well, they don't sell; they're free on our website.
Yeah.
So he comes along when we're playing that. Playing that. Play testing that. So that's it always works well with somebody who's written the rules. If you're
there's just no there's no tension because he knows what to do. If you do something wrong, he'll tell you.
Sure. Yeah. I guess it makes it harder to argue the rules with the person who wrote it.
Yeah. Well, Chris sometimes tries, isn't he? That's right. Friend of ours.
Fantastic. So is it the Valor and Fortitude rules? Is that what your sort of typical your games would be using now?
More recently, yeah. Often because we're trying out different army lists that Jervis has written up, and need to refine them, or he wants to refine them, try them out. But but we do still play Black Powder and still play Hell Caesar as well. Those are probably the three ones we play most.
Right.
But they are.
Yeah.
Brain can't handle more than 3 rules.
No. Well, Rick will tell you that his brain can't handle 2 systems, and plus all the other systems he's got in his head when we were playing. Because that doesn't come from, no, that's not Hell Caesar. Oh, that's not Black Powder.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, it's been awesome to chat. Thank you both so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks so much. I would like to extend my great thanks to Alan and Michael Perry for agreeing to chat to me and for sharing so many tales from their amazing careers. If you would like to find out more about the work that the Perrys do today, I have included a link to Perry Miniatures' website down in the description below. And if you would like to support the work that I do here, then please feel free to check out my Patreon via another link down in the description. It's the only way I'm able to keep doing this work, so I greatly appreciate it. And thank you to my patrons for helping me prep for this interview. I also greatly appreciate likes and shares and comments here on YouTube. And if you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing. All of that is enormously important and really helpful, so thank you if you're able to. And if you prefer to listen to my interviews, you can do so on your podcast app of choice just by searching In Conversation with Jordan Sorcery, and you will no doubt find it. I release episodes roughly a week after they premiere here on YouTube. Thank you once again to the Perrys, Alan and Michael. Thank you for watching and listening. I'm Jordan, and this is Jordan Sorcery.